So when it comes to composition, we're going to talk about this in February with the training. But the idea of composition, there's some great books out there. John Carlson has some great stuff on it with his guide to landscape painting. And then Edgar Payne, he goes through just a ton of different composition concepts that artists have played with over the centuries. But in the end, composition and design, visual pathways, they're all the same thing. And all composition is doing those things that keep the viewer inside the painting and wanting to stay there and look at it longer and longer. That's all it is. So what we really need to think about is, do I have an area in my painting that is pushing the viewer out of my painting? Because if I have something that's pushing the viewer out of the painting, then they're going to leave and they're going to go look at another painting. And we don't want them to do that. We want them to look at our painting. So all we have to do is think about really all the composition is it's a way to guide the viewer from one area of the painting to another area of the painting. That's why I like visual pathways better than the term composition or design, because to me it's all about pathways. It's how are we leading the viewer around our painting. And I love, Brian, that you have this, like the space here compared to the space over here is very different. Excellent in terms of the interest of it, rather than having it centered like this in the painting or like this, you have it off kilter. I think that's great. That's much more interesting in terms of design. So, so that would be the other thing about design is it interesting? When we have things right in the middle, oftentimes what that does is it creates what that is stability. When something's right in the middle, it's stable. And what happens when things are too stable is they get boring. They're not as interesting. When we're a little bit off kilter, when we don't feel entirely stable, so stable is even numbers, 2, 4, 6. That's stability. Uneven numbers, odd numbers, are less stable. They're a little off kilter, 3, 5, 7, that sort of thing. So what we're going for as landscape painters is a little bit of instability or unpredictableness rather than stability or what is it when symmetry. We don't want things to be too symmetrical, like when we talked about the repetition and the spaces in between things, like pickets on a fence. When you have pickets on a fence that go straight across the painting and they're all spaced exactly the same, well, that's stability. And what happens is we can predict what's going to happen with the next picket. And so we don't have to look at the next picket, and we'll get bored because there's no mystery there. There's no puzzle to solve. There's nothing to surprise us. So we'll get bored and we'll go on to something else. So all we're doing is when we create this unpredictableness by not having repetition, by not having pattern, by not having symmetry, is we're making it so that the viewer hopefully doesn't know what's going to come next. So they keep going from one spot to another around the painting to discover what else is coming, because it's not obvious right off the bat. That's all we're doing. We just don't want it to be so obvious that they no longer have anything that they need to do.